Good morning, Tia Torres here with another Tia Talk podcast episode. So today I want to talk about the other passion in my life, which is my little prison world that I'm involved in. And the title of this particular episode, I don't want you to confuse it with a former episode I did, maybe last year. That particular one was about my lifestyle. So I threw in the extra word, the forgotten, to emphasize on the type of people that I want to talk about this morning. So I recently met a young couple through another reality show. And some of you may know this because you follow me on other platforms. But there was a reality show on the Lifetime Network, and it's called Prison Brides. And it's about women in other countries who end up marrying an American inmate, and the struggles they go through and whatnot. And in the course of watching the first season, there was a particular couple that really jumped out at me. Oh my God, I haven't had my morning Coke Zero. There was a young couple that jumped out at me, mainly because the young girl reminded me of me many, many years ago when I got involved in my husband at the time, Tony's case. And Tony was accused of something that he swore up and down was incorrect. Although he admitted to being a part of the crime, he said he did not commit the actual murder of the man in his case. Anyways, I ended up getting involved in his case, became my own private investigator, found a different attorney who would actually allow me to help. And lo and behold, I helped Tony's charges get dropped from murder to manslaughter and got him off a death sentence. Now, mind you, he, again, was privy to the crime, but he didn't actually kill the man involved. So I just remembered my struggles back then, and I saw the same heartache and heartbreak in this young girl on the show Prison Brides. So in their storyline, it wasn't just about her living in another country and traveling to the state of Michigan to, be a prison wife. Their claim is that he was wrongly convicted. And so I reached out to them and I just said, hey, I kind of know what you're going through. Can I help? And they were very gracious. They were very excited. Jamal, the inmate, the one in prison, he said, basically, Tia will understand because of my background and my past relationships. So his wife, Gabriella, emailed me his entire case and court records, police reports, you name it. So a little background. Jamal was charged with murder. I believe it was 2012, right around there. He was a teenager. He was, I think, 16. He was charged and convicted, but we'll get to the conviction part in a minute. He was charged with the murder of his best friend, Carlos. And from day one, he said he did not do it. It was his best friend. He loved his best friend. He didn't have a family support. His mother and he had a very contentious relationship. The public defender, throughout the entire time, kept trying to get him to take a plea deal. He refused. Even when they told him that he was going to have a bench trial, which means There would be no jury. It was just in front of a judge, which is very risky. He still said, no, I'm not admitting to something I didn't do. This is my best friend. That alone kind of, it put me going towards, I believe him, because he was a kid. And let's face it, as a kid, it's pretty easy to scare a kid and manipulate a kid into doing what you want him to do. And Jamal would not buckle. Now, mind you, if he had taken that plea deal, he would actually be getting out in about a year or two, because he's been in for 12 years already. 12 years of a 40-year sentence. Now, I'm just going to give you a couple of brief points about his case that I observed myself in reading them. There was DNA found at the murder scene, but it was not Jamal's. From what I can read, they didn't even bother to see whose DNA it might be. And I would have to Google. I don't know how good the DNA testing was back then, but I didn't see where they attempted to look. They could find who the DNA belonged to, but it was not Jamal's. There was no forensic evidence, physical evidence, no weapon found on Jamal. He actually had a very, very reliable alibi. He was staying at the house of a social worker because of the bad relationship that he had with his mother. The social worker said he was with, Jamal was there that night, that he, as in the social worker, is actually the one that woke Jamal up in the morning to let him know that he had just received a phone call that his best friend had been shot and killed. Jamal was never a suspect until apparently his mother was going around town saying that she didn't want trouble coming to her house because of her son. The suspicions were that the murder was committed by the local big drug dealer. Why? Well, Jamal takes responsibility for this. He said that he and Carlos had broken into the drug dealer's house, maybe, I don't know how many nights before, and stole from the house. I don't know if it was money, drugs. I haven't gotten that far yet in reading. So right away, Jamal and the locals in the neighborhood felt that this was at the hands of this drug dealer. So that's the reason why Jamal's mother began spouting off about she felt Jamal's actions were going to bring trouble to her house, meaning the drug dealer was going to come shoot up her house, whatever. And then all of a sudden, we're talking months later, she goes to the police station and says that Jamal confessed to her. Okay. Let's roll with that one. When I read the transcripts of the trial, the first thing that pops out is that when she's called up to the stand, she begins to backpedal. She doesn't want to testify. She thought her statement would be anonymous. Wow. She tries to get out of talking and testifying. The judge then threatens her with contempt and puts her in the jail and tells her that she is not coming out, and I quote, until she testifies against her son. This is the judge saying this. Also, what I read in the court transcripts is her story is that Jamal met her somewhere. She was in a car. The car was driven by her boyfriend at the time. And Jamal got into the car and confessed in front of his mother and the boyfriend. The boyfriend made a statement that Jamal didn't say those things. Yet, Jamal was convicted on hearsay by his mother, who again had issues with him. Now, interestingly enough, the boyfriend of the mother did not have a good relationship with Jamal. And yet, he testified on his behalf. You know, you have to sit here and go, okay, it doesn't sound right. Until I watched the miniseries The Innocence Files on Netflix. If you never watched nothing on Netflix, watch that show. And I'm not saying this to be make some political statement, but especially back during those times, the majority of the wrongly convicted were young Black men, Black boys, teenagers. And in the case of the Innocence Files, that's what it was. And, the Innocence Project is who it was based upon, exonerated these men, 20 years later. But one of the things I thought was interesting is that the Innocence Project said, based on their statistics of getting wrongly convicted, exonerated, in their opinion, not their opinion, in their statistical opinion, okay, 1% of the incarcerated in America have been wrongly convicted. Now, 1% doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you do the math, 1% of 2 million plus, that's 20,000 people. 20,000 people in the United States of America have been wrongly convicted. They are sitting in prison, wrongly convicted. Now, I broke it down a little bit further. I divided 200,000 by 50 states just to get an average. In each state, in each Department of Corrections of whatever state you pick, there are 400 people in prison that are innocent. That's a lot of people. That's like almost the size of my town that I live in. 400 people per state are sitting in prison innocent. So why can't Jamal be one of those? So Jamal took it a step further, and he wanted to tell his story, and he wrote a book. It's available on Amazon, and I bought a copy. I haven't read it yet. I'm just looking at it right now. It's called If Pain Was a Person. I can already tell it's going to be an emotional story, right? But I haven't read it yet. I haven't looked at it yet. So I just want to open it up and maybe look at the first few pages with you. The cover is a beautiful illustration of him. Let me read you the foreword. My first time meeting Jamal was when he was 14 years old and with his mother. She introduced herself to me and began to tell me her son was everything negative under the sun. I immediately thought, wow, my mom would never. She went on for a few minutes, and finally I interrupted and asked, Tell me something positive about your son. She literally, without missing a breath, said, "There's nothing positive to say." I looked at him for an explanation, and he was looking at the floor. He was embarrassed. I asked him, "Jamal, this can't be right." He replied, "Mr. James, some of the things she mentioned are true, but I can explain." He went on and spoke very profoundly about what was going on with his life and living situation. My heart felt a tug, and I felt like, wow, I expected him to have this disrespectful, I don't care attitude, and it was so far from that. As he spoke, I noted that he was, well, he's respectful, made eye contact, and spoke very well for a kid his age. Something in me said, this kid just needs a positive male influence in his life. After they left, I went and spoke to the nurse assigned to his case, and before I could fully voice my concerns, I remember her saying, "James, I felt the same impression as yourself. We've got to wrap our arms around this young man and see what we can do. Whatever you want to do, you have my full support." That is how our relationship began. Every day from that moment on, I have been involved in mentoring, encouraging, and supporting Jamal. I have been a constant since day one. I applaud this endeavor in writing his first book, and I look forward to what comes next. And that was written by James Thorpe, who was his social worker when he was in a juvenile facility. And this is the same social worker who he was with on the night that Jamal's best friend Carlos was shot and killed. This is the same Mr. Thorpe who testified, and his words meant nothing to the court. So, throughout my podcast here, I like to sprinkle it with chapters, and I know, the best way to read a book is continually, and I have a very busy schedule, so it's hard for me to commit to anything, but I'm going to do my best to read on a continual basis. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I'm about to get really emotional right now. I just turned the page to his dedication page on his book. It says, "For Carlos, my brother, my friend, until the end." Does that sound like a little boy who killed his best friend to you? Yeah, my mission is to rescue, all right. But in this case, we're not done.